Hi, Amanda. How
John,
are you?
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Amanda
you.
Labrizzi,
Thank you.
Long Island Market Director for UBS.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here today.
You're very welcome.
How'd your time as a hockey player, particularly with the New York Islanders, influence and shape your approach to business?
Well, I was very fortunate to have one of the greatest coaches ever. His name is Arbor. We all know about him and who he was. To us hockey players on the team, he was like a second dad, somebody you really, really respected and listened to. And every day, to this day, I look back at some situations that happened, and I ask that question of myself: how would Al react? What would Al tell me to do? And life is full of peaks and valleys, and to try and keep them the same level. And Al was always a proponent of that advice.
What motivated you to pursue a business career alongside your hockey career, especially considering the inspiration that you drew from Larry Lund?
One of the best things that's ever happened in my life is riding a bus full of hockey players. First of all, I was very lucky because I was 18 years old and I got drafted by the Houston Aeros. But riding this bus, there might be a couple of guys that are in their young 20s. And then the rest of the team is over 30. So I sat 3 or 4 rows back on the right side by myself. And Larry sat on the other side, a couple rows in front of me by himself. Because Larry Lund, every time he sat down, he had a briefcase and he opened it up and he put on his glasses and he was reading stuff, and that made me very curious. So I finally got up and I went to Larry. I said, "Excuse me, Larry, can you tell me what you're doing?" And I was afraid he was going to say, "No, get out of here." What he said was, "Sit down, I'll tell you. Sit down." So I sat down and I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I own real estate, I own a hockey school, and I'm just looking at some of my paperwork." And he says, "Take a look behind you. What do you see?" And I said, "Well, I see a lot of guys having fun." And he says, yeah, they're having fun, but not one of those guys knows what he's doing next year. They have no idea." And he said to me, "How long do you think this game's going to last?" I said, "I hope a long time." And he says, "Well, some guys, it doesn't happen. You have to find what you're going to do next. That's the best advice I could give you. You have to find what you're going to do next." I mean, he scared the heck out of me. I said, I got to find something. I got to, But obviously, I took it very seriously. And when the timing was right, I executed.
Well, we've heard about your journey in obtaining your Series 7 license while on the road with the team. Could you walk us through that experience and shed some light on the challenges and rewards of simultaneously studying and working while playing hockey?
Well, after our first Stanley Cup, I ran into somebody at Prudential Base, and I told him, I said, I'm kind of looking for work. If there's anything you guys got or that I can do. And what he said is, "Why don't we work on the first step? Why don't we take the Series 7? So obviously, I'm playing hockey full time, and I said to myself, "When am I going to do this?" And luckily, they had this. I remember it well. It was like a 30-chapter course. So I would take a chapter on every road trip, and it's study chapter with a test to follow. And I can remember being on the plane and on the bus, and my teammates walking past me. He said, "What are you doing? What's going on? What is that?" I said, just reading, and it took me the whole season. And then I took a 2-week crash course where I was in the city every day. And finally I took the test, and it was a long test. Next thing I know, I'm on the golf course, and this gentleman walked out to the middle of the golf course, and his face was pointed downward, like, oh, and right away I failed, right? And he said, "You passed." I said, "Thank you. And then I started to work from that point on in the summer.
I couldn't imagine having anything else to focus on besides that, right? Being somebody who's in the industry was helpful to me in taking the Series 7. So to not be in the industry, studying, and looking at it from afar, while also having to have such straight focus and dedication on a sport that is your professional career, it's so commendable that you were able to have that focus. And
I was very proud
yeah.
of that, about that moment when I passed that test, because not having gone to university, and my education was over at grade 12, so all of a sudden I had to become streetwise.
Yep.
Right. And so how do I educate myself? And that was perfect. It was a perfect task for me to do.
Mm-hmm. Real estate and title insurance can be complex. What was it about that at that time that caused you to feel such a passion for those industries?
Well, I felt it was a great match. Like it didn't take away from my game on the ice. It only helped. The way I think of it now, it kind of just fell into place. Kind of what Larry Lund was telling me, and it became very attractive. Because again, it wasn't demanding. I didn't have to be up at 6 a.m. to go to work for title insurance. Mm-hmm. I could do it on my time, after practice, after the job was done on the ice.
In what ways did you find that it helped? Did it allow you to become more focused in the sport, or did it give you a vision beyond?
Focused, yeah. razor sharp. And there are some people out there that said, "Wow, old time hockey, if you're not like this, all hockey, you're distracted." I totally disagree, because that made me want it more on the ice.
Can you shed some light on how you became involved in the formation of Lincoln Land Services?
Lincoln Land Services was already in place, and I had worked at a company called Fidelity. Several of my good friends, left Fidelity and went to Lincoln. And not a day went by that they wouldn't call me, when you're coming over to join us. And it was tough. It was becoming tough for me, just the environment wasn't working out. And sometimes that happens, right? Mm-hmm. It's like playing on a hockey team that, tells you, we don't think you got it anymore. We're gonna move you on, That feeling was kind of similar. So I said, it's time for me to go. And I was lucky, very lucky, because I have a lot of friends at Lincoln Land. And the owner and principal of the company, wonderful guy, and respects what I do and respects what I can contribute to the company. And I'm enjoying it. I love it.
It's interesting how much organized sports really does translate into the business world. You learn so many lessons in working in that environment. You've mentioned Larry Lund as an inspiration for starting your professional career. How did you pass on that inspiration to Pat Flatley, and how did he become your business partner in your firm?
Pat Flatley, when he first came to the New York Islanders, I liked him a lot, and he respected me, and I kind of took him under my wing, and we became pretty good friends, and not only line mates, but pretty good friends. And after hockey was over, he had called me up one day, sometime in 2005. He was living in Toronto, and he said, there's title insurance up here in Canada. I said, "Oh, really?" He says, Yep, and it's expanding where it really wasn't happening a lot. And I said to him, "Are you interested?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm kind of interested." I said, "Well, I would love to work with you, love to explain what's going on, and I could tell him how we could be effective together." I can tell you that, without question, there were not too many people that would ever open my world up to at that time, other than Pat, because He exemplifies focus and hard work, and we're different guys, different characters, and he plays a different role, and he can walk into any place and talk, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and it sounds like you guys were a great pairing both as teammates and as business partners, but going into business with a friend can be a risk. So how have you navigated those potential challenges and ensured a successful working relationship?
Because of Al, we're pretty honest with each other. There's no hiding anything from our coach Al, and we talk about Al all the time. And have we had little disagreements like, we're not really there on that same page? We have, but most of the time we're synchronized, and we rely on each other to be independent and do our stuff.
So at UBS, when we guide clients, we advise them on something called the Wealth Way framework, which includes 3 L's: liquidity, longevity, and legacy. Spend a lot of time with clients asking them, what do they need now? What do they want their life to look like in the future? And what do they want their legacy to be? If you're looking back on your career and your life, what do you want your legacy to be?
Well, I have set the example for my boys, the same way that my dad set the example for me. It's a different world today, so it's not the same as when I was their age. So they have to face it differently, but if you're consistent, you're honest, and you're hardworking, and you believe in yourself, you can establish that legacy and longevity and do very well in the world.
So as your jersey hangs in the rafters of UBS Arena, constantly reminding you of the impact on the franchise, what message or legacy do you hope it conveys to the future generations of players and fans?
The fact that every Islander that we have right now, every current player wants to play here. That's the most important thing. Every current player has realized that it's not only their immediate family, but they have a big, huge Islander family. So back in my day, we jumped over the boards for Al Arbor, our coach, for our teammates, and most of all, for our family, for our Islander family. I can see that in the players on that bench. They want to be here, and they want to win so bad for the Islander community. But if I look back, at my days as an Islander and being part of a team that we were able to reach the ultimate goal of winning a Stanley Cup, and not only once, but 4 times, to be a member of that group is very, very special.
We work well together. We work hard for each other, and that's how it works. That's how it's been working for us. We have a hell of a hockey team.
John, thank you so much for joining us today. I took a lot away from this conversation. Appreciate you sharing all of your life's experiences with us.
And thank you, Amanda. Appreciate it.